Everyone in this room has heard of Chakravyuh, a story we grew up with. Abhimanyu enters a circular major battle formation. He knows how to get in, but he doesn't know how to get out. He doesn't know how to get out because nobody taught him. Not because he was weak, not because he wasn't brave enough, but because his training was incomplete. And that story stayed with me my whole life. Not because of Abhimanyu, but because of the formation itself. A Chakravyuh isn't a wall, it's not a dead end, it's a path. It goes around you throughout your life. And the only way through it is to consciously navigate through it. You cannot really escape a Chakravyuh. And today's theme is labyrinth. When I say labyrinth, a lot of people assume it as a maze, like a dead end or a wall. That's not what a labyrinth is. A labyrinth is a path. And the only way is not to escape, but to actually walk through it, and walking through every layer consciously, one by one. My career has been a labyrinth, not because it was confusing, but because every time I thought I understood the system well, it presented another layer. There's another layer of complexity which challenged my thought. Whatever I knew, I thought I understood, was challenged right there and then. Because courage can only get you through the first layer, but it will not get you through the second or the third or the fifth layer. I grew up in Panipat, a city famous for 3 battles, handlooms, and export houses. It's famous around the world for the export, but not really famous for producing tech entrepreneurs. In Panipat, the path is really visible. You can either enter your family business, or you can join an engineering college. People get out of the Panipat to pursue their career. But a visible path is not as simple as a simple one. And a visible path means that it's already mapped out, that you have a map. And a map means it'll only take you where the map maker went, not really give you a separate path. When I was 20, I was presented a map which I thought would not lead me where I wanted to go. So what I did was I dropped out of college in the middle of second year. Not because I had a business plan, not because a great startup idea came up, but because I found a job. One of my close friends got a job in a call center in Gurgaon. And that made me think that I could actually start learning something and start making money instead of just going through the theory. And that's how I got out of the Panipat. When I got my first job, it was a typical call center job, working in a graveyard shift, going to the office 1 a.m. at the night, because when it is 9 a.m. in New York, it's 6:30 p.m. in New Delhi. So my workday started when everybody else's ended. When people think of this job, they think it's like a monotonous job. You're doing a robotic work, taking 100 calls a day, talking to the customers, just reading the scripts. But to me, it was a very different perspective. I was taking 100 calls a day, talking to 100 different people, attending 100 different scenarios, getting rejected, feeling frustrated at the time, and calming myself down. So it's all about the experience and the perception when you get to the situation. And when I started getting good at it, I used to go to the office in a cab, and I found other people in the cab who was making 10 to 15 times of what I was making, which actually intrigued me. And I started learning more about technology. I got Microsoft certified. I got my second job. And then, of course, Labyrinth did what labyrinths do. It presented another layer. By the end of my second job, I was really confident that I've learned the business because I got 3 promotions in 2 years. I was absolutely confident that I could actually do it on my own. So what I did was I left that job and started another business because I was absolutely confident I could do it. That business failed miserably. At 23, I was under the debt of more than 1 crore rupees. A 23-year-old guy from Panipat in a debt of 1.5 crores. That was more money that a lot of people in my hometown would make in their entire lifetime. But again, that is there to teach you something. everything happens for a reason. The labyrinth, every layer is there to prepare you for something which is going to come next. So the first layer taught me about business intelligence. So when I was taking those 100 calls, I wasn't just taking calls, I was understanding how American market works, how people build trust over the phone with a stranger, and how it actually unfolds. How can you make people to trust you remotely? But this second layer, which was the debt, it actually taught me emotional endurance. You cannot learn about it in any other book. Emotional endurance is not about ignoring the situation or putting a brave face and just showing up. It is about being in chaos and still having the composure and having the clarity to think for the next step. And that's where I actually thought about the next step, because I already learned the business acumen from my first job. So I started another company. And after that, another one. So finally, I had enough money, enough resources that I could start a big business. I had a clear path. So with that, I actually started the current company that I'm with. We started the company because I started approaching my colleagues because I wanted to start the business, but I did not really knew the intricacies of this actual field. So we found a consultant who could actually help us. He had done this in the past. It was fair and square. I reached out to him, like, I want to start this business. He promised to get me, within 3 to 4 months, 50 lakh worth of business every month. It was pretty standard. We started paying him 2 lakh rupees a month. He started recommending other people, like a marketing team, started paying them 3 lakh rupees a month. And long before we knew, the expenses shot up to 10 lakh rupees a month, and the revenue was not even 2 lakh rupees a month. And by the end of the year, I ran out of all the savings that I had actually built after that huge debt. So now we are back to square one. I had to fire him, of course, and the entire team. I had to rework the entire thing, start from the scratch. And that's where none of the consultant advised actually, but I started with my own thinking of how I could do this now, because there was no going back. There was no quitting. Whenever you're in such a situation, your mind and the people around you would tell you to find a safer option. Just go get a good job. You can get a good C-level job rather than risking your life with this situation. But of course not, because this business was my brainchild. I was really attached to it and I knew I could do it. I had this in my gut instinct. So I started working out, started doing the sales myself, started reaching out to the clients, offered free trial, started showing up. Instead of long-term contracts, we started offering our service for free, just to see how it works out. And eventually it did work out. That's something none of the books will tell you, that's something none of the consultant would advise you, but that is something that you find out on your own. And when you do it on your own, there's nobody else who can teach you better, because you're the best version of yourself. Now that I look back at the labyrinth, now when I try to connect the dots, I can see what each layer was there for. The first layer, dropping out of college, taught me to actually prefer action over theory. The second layer of getting the job taught me business acumen, business intelligence, business literacy, where I could learn more about the American market, where I could learn more about how people behave over the phone, how to build trust over the phone. The third layer, which was that huge debt, taught me emotional stability, emotional endurance of, you're able to get through any situation in your life if you're really able to compose yourself in that difficult situation and think clearly for the next step. And lastly, the success without the consultant taught me how we could do it on our own, because the business acumen is already there and you already know the audience. It's just that it's all about showing up and working hard. I could not see all of that when I was going through it, because that's how labyrinths work. You cannot see it in real time, because learning is retrospective, but action has to be taken in real time. You cannot predict your future right now, but you can take the next step. So when I tell people my story, they ask me, so when exactly you got out of the labyrinth? Well, I didn't. I'm still here, still in India, building the same brand, building the business. And that's what I want, that's the thought I want you to sit with. A labyrinth, a lot of people assume the goal of the labyrinth is to actually escape, whereas it is just to get to the next step, not really an escape. Abhimanyu's problem was not really the Chakravyuh. It was that he wasn't prepared for what he was getting into. He only had the courage, but he did not have the emotional intelligence of how he would figure out the labyrinth. And that's what I want to be your takeaway for today as well. Now, it's all about navigating from wherever you are rather than finding a route out. Today, I run this business. We have more than 1,200 clients in US, 1,200 businesses in US that we serve, and serving from here, not from the US. And that's what you all need to understand as well. You all in this room are part of the formation. You may be in your first layer, where you're trying to learn a new skill. You're trying to get acclimated to a new city. You're trying to get into a new business. And everything seems too complex for you to understand. But that's not a contradiction. That's not a problem. That's actually a learning gap. So you just need to learn, because learning gets you through the complexity to fill that gap. Or you may be in the second layer, where you found your first major setback, or you found an issue in your life, maybe in your personal life, and you're thinking about retreating. But you need to understand, you just need to look for the next step. Stay composed, stay focused, think about again why you got yourself into this, and then you will find a way. Or maybe you are in the third layer, where you've already achieved something in your life, where you've already accomplished a good amount, and you still find everything getting more complex. Again, it's not a contradiction. That's what growth looks like from inside the labyrinth. That's what it feels like when you're inside it, because you've outgrown whatever you've learned so far in your life. So the goal is to move on. And there's an age-old learning, a story that always sticks with me about holding a candle when you're moving forward. So a candle, when you have it in your hands and you're in a dark room, you could only see 3 feet from yourself. A lot of people think of it as a limitation. I used to think that too. But now that I think about the labyrinth, it's not a limitation. It is by design that you only see the 3 feet ahead of you. So you can take a couple of conscious steps rather than imagining the labyrinth itself. Because if you can zoom out of the labyrinth and see all the path, all the obstructions, all the walls, all the issues that you would be facing in your life, you will not be able to continue, because the complexity will scare you away and you will not even step in. So that candle is all you need. That all you need is to make that conscious step and navigating layer by layer through the complexity of your life. Because the labyrinth never ends. It keeps adding more layers so that you can learn more and you can consciously go for the next steps. And what I've found in reality, a lot of people who actually get through it are the ones who understood how to take the next conscious step. Because at the end of the day, labyrinth rewards the one who navigates, not the one who escapes. That's it. Thank you.